You left us to die out there. Marcus Kane's fist slammed onto the metal briefing table, the sound echoing through Fob Python's operations tent like a gunshot. His face still bearing fresh cuts from 3 days ago, twisted with rage as he jabbed his finger toward the empty chair at the end of the table. Ghost 7. Whoever the hell that call sign belongs to, they abandoned us. 2 kilometers out, perfect overwatch position, and nothing. No comms, no shots, no backup. We called that SOS 23 times. The 8 SEAL team members behind him nodded their eyes hard with betrayal. 3 wore arm slings. 2 had bandaged heads. All of them looked like they'd crawled out of hell. In the corner of the tent, a small figure in desert tan fatigues carefully cleaned a medical kit, her movements methodical and quiet. Sarah Mitchell, 27, looked more like a high school teacher than a combat medic. Thin shoulders, gentle hands, eyes that stayed down. The medic. Lieutenant Brooks sneered, glancing at her. Can barely lift a rifle, but somehow she's the one patching up real warriors. Sarah's hands paused for half a second on the bandage roll, then continued rapping, silent. Marcus turned to Colonel Winters. Sir, I want Ghost 7's file. I want a name, and I want them court-martialed for desertion under fire. The colonel's jaw tightened. That file is classified, top secret. I don't have clearance. Then get someone who does. A soft sound interrupted him, the distinct click-click of a Barrett M107 sniper rifle being field-stripped. Everyone turned. Sarah's hands moved with surgical precision across the disassembled weapon parts, her fingers dancing through the complex mechanism like she'd done it 10,000 times. In the darkness, in her sleep, in hell itself. But nobody in that room knew that yet. Nobody knew what those hands had really done 72 hours ago. Marcus continued his tirade, his voice rising with each word. 0230 hours. We were pinned down in that village Khalat sector, 15 clicks north of here. Taliban fighters everywhere. RPGs, PKM machine guns. We radioed Ghost 7's position. Nothing. Called again. Static. We lost 2 good men getting to that extraction point because our angel in the sky decided to take a coffee break. Sergeant Hayes, the team's designated marksman, nodded grimly. We counted at least 30 hostiles, maybe more. Fire coming from rooftops, alleyways, windows. It was a kill box, and we had 0 overwatch support. Sarah set down the Barrett's bolt carrier group, her movements still fluid and practiced. She reached for a cleaning cloth, her face expressionless. But something flickered in her eyes, a shadow that came and went so quickly it might have been a trick of the tent's harsh lighting. Lieutenant Brooks stepped closer to Marcus, his voice dripping with contempt. And now, we're supposed to trust that whoever Ghost 7 is will have our backs on the next stop. How do we know they won't vanish again when things get hot? Private Jensen, his left arm in a sling from a bullet that had shattered his radius, Bones shifted uncomfortably in his chair. His eyes kept darting to Sarah, then away, then back again. His jaw worked like he wanted to say something, but each time he opened his mouth, he thought better of it. Colonel Winters raised his hand for silence. Gentlemen, I understand your frustration, but without proper clearance, my hands are tied. JSOC protocols. To hell with protocols! Marcus's voice cracked. 3 of my brothers are in that medical tent right now because Ghost 7 failed us. I want answers, and I want them now. The tent fell silent except for the soft whir of the air circulation system fighting against the 110-degree Afghan heat. Sarah finished reassembling the Barrett, her hands moving backward through the sequence with the same effortless precision. She set the weapon down, gently stood, and moved toward the exit. Where do you think you're going? Brooks called after her. Sarah paused at the tent flap, her back to them. Medical tent, sir. Specialist Rodriguez needs his dressing changed at 1400 hours. Her voice was soft, measured, the kind of voice that disappeared in a crowd. Of course you do. Brooks laughed a harsh sound. Run along, medic. Leave the real soldiers to figure out real problems. Sarah's shoulders tensed for just a moment, a micro movement that suggested she wanted to turn around, wanted to say something, wanted to defend herself. But instead, she pushed through the tent flap and stepped into the blinding sunlight. Marcus watched her go, then slammed his palm on the table again. That's another thing. How did a medic get assigned to a forward operating base with a SEAL team? She's got no combat experience, no field time. She flinches every time someone fires a weapon on the range. Hayes grunted agreement. Saw her yesterday when Davis was sighting in his M4. She literally jumped when he fired. What kind of combat medic is afraid of gunfire? What none of them saw was Sarah's hands now outside the tent, trembling slightly before she clenched them into fists. She closed her eyes, took 3 measured breaths, the kind taught in tactical breathing exercises for high-stress situations, and the trembling stopped. She walked across the dusty compound toward the medical tent, past the concrete barriers and sandbag bunkers, past the motor pool where mechanics worked on a Humvee, with a blown transmission past the chow hall, where the day's heat made the air shimmer and distort. On the wall of the operations building, she passed a framed photograph, 8 men in full tactical gear, faces painted, weapons ready. SEAL Team 5. The placard read, Operation Ghost Dancer. Below it, a list of names. 7 were clearly visible. The 8th was redacted, a black bar covering both the face and the name. Sarah's eyes lingered on that photo for 3 seconds longer than necessary before she kept walking. Before we continue, if this story already has you on the edge of your seat wondering who Ghost 7 really is and what happened in those 72 hours, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. We bring you the most intense military stories that show the truth behind the heroes no one sees. Hit that like button if you believe real warriors don't always wear their medals on their chest. And drop a comment. Have you ever been underestimated because of how you look? Let's hear your story. Now back to Phoebe Python, because Marcus is about to make a decision that will change everything. Inside the medical tent, Sarah found Specialist Rodriguez lying on a cot, his abdomen wrapped in clean bandages. Shrapnel from an IED had torn through his right side 3 days ago, the same operation that had gone sideways for Marcus's team. "Hey, Doc," Rodriguez said with a weak smile. "Come to torture me again." Sarah returned the smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Just need to check the wound, make sure there's no infection." As she carefully peeled back the bandages, Chaplain Rodriguez, no relation to the specialist, entered the tent. Father Michael Rodriguez was a stocky man in his 50s with kind eyes and the weathered face of someone who'd seen too many young men die. "Sarah," he said gently, "how are you holding up?" She didn't look up from her work. "I'm fine, Chaplain." "That's not what I asked." He pulled up a folding chair and sat. "I've been doing this for 26 years. I know when someone's carrying weight they don't talk about." Sarah's hands paused for just a moment on the gauze. "Wound looks clean, no signs of sepsis. You're healing well, Rodriguez." The specialist grinned. "That's because you're a miracle worker, Doc." After she finished redressing his wound and moved to the supply cabinet, the chaplain followed her. "Something about you," he said quietly so only she could hear. "You carry yourself different sometimes, like you've seen more than a medic usually sees, like you know things you shouldn't know." Sarah's back stiffened. "We all have our stories, Chaplain." "That's true, but most medics don't have the posture of a Tier 1 operator when they think no one's watching." For 3 full seconds, Sarah stood frozen at the supply cabinet. Then she turned, and her eyes for just a moment weren't the soft, gentle eyes of a medic. They were hard, sharp. The eyes of someone who'd looked through a scope and made impossible decisions in impossible situations. Then she blinked, and the softness returned. "I should get back to work." The chaplain nodded slowly. "You know where to find me if you need to talk." That evening, as the sun painted the Afghan sky in shades of orange and red, Marcus gathered his team at the shooting range on the eastern edge of the FOB. The range was a simple affair: sandbag, berms, paper targets at various distances, and the ever-present dust that got into everything. Hayes was showing off as usual. He'd just put 5 rounds into an 800-yard target, the grouping tight enough to cover with a fist. "That's how it's done, boys. Center mass every time." The other team members clapped appreciatively. Hayes was good, really good. He'd been the team's designated marksman for 3 years, with dozens of confirmed kills in Iraq and Afghanistan. Marcus checked his watch. If only Ghost 7 had been half that good 3 nights ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation. "Still can't believe someone with that call sign just ghosted on us," Brooks said, loading his own rifle. "The irony is almost funny." "Nothing funny about dead teammates," Marcus snapped. That's when Sarah walked past, heading from the medical tent back toward her quarters, a small plywood structure she shared with 2 other female personnel. "Hey, medic," Marcus called out. "Want to try? Or are you scared?" Sarah stopped walking, but didn't turn around. "I should get back to..." No, seriously. Brooks moved to block her path. You're in a combat zone. Everyone should know how to shoot. Come on, show us what you got. The other team members started gathering around, sensing entertainment. Sarah stood there small and quiet, clearly wanting to leave, but with nowhere to go without physically pushing past them. Let her go, Jensen said quietly from the back of the group. She's off duty. Marcus ignored him. Just 3 shots, medic, 100 yards, easy distance, unless you're too scared. The trap was obvious. If she refused, she'd look weak. If she tried and failed, she'd be humiliated. Either way, Marcus got to feel superior. Sarah's shoulders rose and fell with a deep breath. Okay. The word was so soft they almost missed it. She walked to the firing line, and Hayes handed her his M4 carbine with a smirk. Safety's here, charging handles here, in case you forgot your basic training. Sarah took the weapon, and something changed in her posture, just for a second. Her feet shifted to shoulder-width apart automatically. Her weight rolled forward onto the balls of her feet. Her weak side hand found the handguard in exactly the right position. Thumb over bore, elbow tucked, support side, shoulder, rolled slightly forward. It was textbook. Perfect. The kind of stance that takes thousands of repetitions to make automatic. But none of them noticed because they were too busy smirking and elbowing each other. Sarah checked the chamber. Her fingers moved with practiced efficiency, faster than Hayes expected. She seated the magazine with a smooth motion that suggested muscle memory, not hesitation. She clicked off the safety with her trigger finger, never breaking her grip. Then she assumed her shooting stance, and for anyone who knew what to look for, it was all there. The slight cant of her head. The way her breathing slowed and deepened. The micro-adjustments of her feet that compensated for the desert wind coming from the northwest at approximately 8 miles per hour. She fired 3 rounds in 4 seconds. The pop, pop, pop was almost leisurely. No rush, no spray and pray. Just 3 controlled shots. When they checked the target with binoculars, Hayes' smirk died. All 3 rounds had impacted within a 2-inch circle. Dead center of the chest. The kind of grouping that qualified you as an expert marksman. At 100 yards, most soldiers were happy with a 6-inch group. The range went silent. Sarah safed the weapon, ejected the magazine, and cleared the chamber with smooth, practiced motions. She handed the rifle back to Hayes without a word and turned to leave. Wait, Marcus said, but it wasn't mocking anymore. It was confused, suspicious. Those were lucky shots. Wind was calm. Winds at 8 miles per hour from the northwest, Sarah said quietly. I adjusted. Then she walked away, leaving 8 SEAL team members staring at her back in stunned silence. Hayes looked at the target again through his binoculars. That's not luck. That's better than half my team shoots. Brooks cleared his throat. Beginner's luck. Has to be. But Marcus was watching Sarah disappear into her quarters, and his expression had changed from contempt to something else. Something that looked like the beginning of doubt. Do it again, he called after her. 300 yards. Prove it wasn't a fluke. Sarah stopped walking. For 5 full seconds, she stood motionless, her back to them. Then she turned around slowly. Sir, I really should. That's an order, medic. The words hung in the desert air. Around them, other personnel had started to notice the commotion. A small crowd was forming, mechanics from the motor pool, admin staff from the operations center, off-duty soldiers curious about the confrontation. Sarah walked back to the firing line. This time, Hayes moved the target himself, pacing off 300 yards, triple the previous distance. At that range, wind temperature, and even the shooter's heartbeat became significant factors. She reached for her personal tablet, one of those ruggedized military-grade devices built to survive desert heat, sandstorms, and combat conditions. The kind with encrypted satellite connectivity that lets field medics access patient databases, tactical medical protocols, and real-time telemedicine consultations, even in the most remote forward operating bases. These advanced medical tablets run specialized trauma care software, include thermal imaging for locating injuries, and have battery systems that last 72 hours without recharge. Essential technology that bridges the gap between frontline medicine and hospital-level care, giving combat medics the digital tools they need when every second counts and evacuation isn't possible. She checked something on the screen, atmospheric data, Marcus realized. Temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, the kind of environmental factors that affected long-range ballistics. Why would a medic have ballistic calculation software on her tablet? Sarah approached the 300-yard line, took the M4 again, and this time the crowd was watching in complete silence. Even the mechanics had stopped working. The wind had picked up, now gusting to 12 miles per hour. The temperature was dropping as the sun sank toward the horizon, which meant the air density was changing, which meant the bullet's flight path would be different than it was 20 minutes ago. Sarah knelt this time, the proper kneeling position, not the amateur squat that most soldiers used. Her left knee down, right knee up, at 90 degrees, left elbow braced, on left knee, right elbow high and loose. Her spine was straight, her head positioned, so her eye naturally aligned with the sight. She checked the wind flags at 50-yard intervals between her and the target. Her lips moved slightly. Calculations, Marcus realized. She was doing the math in her head. Then she settled. Her breathing slowed until it was almost invisible. The M4 became absolutely motionless, as if it were bolted to a bench rest instead of held by human hands. 5 seconds passed. 10, 15. She was waiting for something. The wind, maybe, or the natural pause between heartbeats when the body was most still. Then she fired. 5 rounds this time. The shots came in a rhythm, crack, 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 crack. Not rapid fire, deliberate. Each shot followed by a micro-adjustment that was barely visible but clearly present. When Hayes jogged out to check the target, he stopped 10 feet away and just stared. Then he turned back to the group and held up 4 fingers pressed together. 4-inch grouping at 300 yards in 12-mile-per-hour gusting wind. With iron sights on a rifle she'd never fired before today. That wasn't beginner's luck. That was expertise. That was thousands of hours of training. That was someone who'd spent so much time behind a rifle that it had become an extension of their body. Marcus walked up to Sarah slowly. His voice had lost all its mockery. "Who trained you?" "Basic infantry training, sir. Everyone gets it." That's not basic anything." He stepped closer, his eyes searching her face. "Who trained you?" "I need to get back to medical, sir. Specialist Chen needs his evening antibiotics." She tried to walk past him, but Hayes stepped into her path. The team sniper pulled his own rifle from its case, a heavily modified M110 semi-automatic sniper system, tricked out with a Leopold scope suppressor and custom stock. It was his baby, and everyone knew it. "No," Hayes said, and there was something in his voice now, not mockery, but challenge. Professional challenge. "You don't get to do that and just walk away. That shooting was too clean, too practiced." He pointed to the far end of the range where a small steel target sat at 800 yards. "That's my personal record distance. Nobody on this base has hit it consistently except me. You want to prove you're just a medic who got lucky? Show us you can't hit that." Sarah looked at the distant target, then at Hayes, then at the crowd that had grown to 30 people now. Word was spreading. Even some officers had wandered over from the operations center. "Sir, I don't think—" "You don't have to think," Brooks interrupted. "Just admit you can't do it and we'll leave you alone." It was another trap. Admit weakness now or try and fail publicly. Either way, they'd get to put her back in her place. But Sarah's eyes had changed again. That soft, deferent look was gone, replaced by something harder. Something that had spent years looking at targets much farther away than 800 yards. Targets that shot back. "Okay," she said quietly. Hayes offered her his custom M110, but she shook her head. The Barrett. Every head turned. She was pointing at the Barrett M107 50 caliber rifle that Hayes had been cleaning earlier, a monster of a weapon designed for extreme long-range precision. It was sitting on a maintenance table 30 feet away, partially disassembled. "That's not even put together," Hayes said. "I know." Sarah walked to the table and stood over the Barrett's components. Receiver bolt, assembly barrel, stock scope bipod, all laid out in organized chaos. Then her hands started moving. She worked without hesitation, without checking references, without second-guessing. Her fingers flew through the complex assembly sequence like a concert pianist, playing a piece she'd performed 1,000 times. Barrel into receiver thread, seat torque. Bolt assembly, check headspace, verify extractor tension. Stock align, mate secure. Scope and bipod, mount level lock. The entire process took 1 minute and 47 seconds. Specialist Chen, the fob's armorer, watched with his mouth hanging open. Holy! He caught himself. I've seen SEAL snipers take longer. Sarah lifted the fully assembled. Barrett checked the chamber, loaded a 5-round magazine, and carried the 30-pound rifle to the firing line like it weighed nothing. She went prone. The proper prone position body, at 45 degrees to the target line legs, splayed left leg, bent right leg, straight, both elbows planted firmly. The Barrett's bipod deployed with a soft click. She adjusted the scope with small, precise turns, checked the wind flags again, glanced at the distant heat shimmer rising from the desert floor, calculated the Coriolis effect in her head. At 800 yards, the rotation of the Earth actually mattered. Then she settled into absolute stillness. The crowd had gone silent. Even the wind seemed to pause. Sarah's breathing slowed. In through the nose for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. Out through the mouth for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. The tactical breathing cycle that calmed the heart rate and steadied the hands. She was waiting again. Not rushing, professional patience. Then the Barrett roared. The .50 caliber round produces overpressure that you feel in your chest cavity even if you're 50 feet away. The muzzle brake channels the blast sideways, creating a shock wave that makes dust jump off the ground. 800 yards downrange, the steel target rang like a bell. Dead center hit. Hayes grabbed his spotting scope and confirmed what his ears had already told him. Perfect center mass, first round hit. Sarah calmly worked the bolt, ejected the spent casing, and prepared for a second shot. This time, she waited 20 seconds reading the wind as it shifted from northwest to west, northwest. The flags danced and settled. She fired again. Another bell-like ring, another perfect hit. By the third shot, people were taking out their phones. By the fourth, someone had called over Captain Emma Reed, the intelligence officer. By the fifth shot, which struck the target with such precision that it left a hole touching the holes from the previous 4 rounds, the crowd had swelled to 50 people. Hayes stood frozen watching through his spotting scope. His own personal record was hitting that target 3 times out of 5. This medic, this small, quiet woman who flinched at loud noises, had just put 5 rounds into a grouping he could cover with his fist. Sarah safed. The Barrett removed the magazine, cleared the chamber, and began field stripping it again. Her hands moved with the same fluid precision, returning each component to its place on the maintenance table. Then she stood and brushed the dust off her fatigues. Marcus walked up to her, and his voice was shaking. Who are you? It wasn't a question this time. It was a demand. Sarah met his eyes for the first time since this had started. For just a moment, he saw something in those eyes. Something cold and distant and infinitely dangerous. Something that had killed before and would kill again, if necessary. Then she blinked, and the soft medic was back. I'm a medic, sir. That's all. She turned and walked away, and this time no one tried to stop her. Marcus stood there staring at her retreating figure, his mind racing. Captain Reed approached him with her tablet already out. Marcus, we need to talk. Not now? Yes, now. She pulled him aside away from the crowd. I've been doing some digging into Ghost 7's file. It's classified under JSOC protocols, which means Joint Special Operations Command. That's Tier 1 level classification. SEAL Team 6, Delta Force, Activity. Those are the only units that get JSOC classification. Marcus felt his chest tighten. What are you saying? I'm saying Ghost 7 isn't regular special operations. They're Tier 1. And she pulled up something on her tablet. I managed to get my hands on some metadata from the operation 3 nights ago. Thermal imaging from a Predator drone that was orbiting the area. She showed him the screen. Grainy black and white thermal footage showed Marcus's team pinned down in the village. The timestamp read 02:31 hours. Then the camera panned to a hillside 2.3 kilometers away. A single heat signature, small, alone, behind a rifle. As they watched, muzzle flashes bloomed from that position, silent in the thermal image but clearly visible. 23 flashes over the course of 18 minutes. And on the ground in the village, thermal signatures went from white-hot to cool black. 23 enemy fighters eliminated by a single shooter at extreme range in total darkness. That's impossible, Marcus whispered. That's over 2 kilometers, at night, with targets moving in an urban environment. Reed zoomed in on the heat signature of the shooter, The thermal bloom made details impossible, but the outline was clear. Small build, female proportions. Marcus's head snapped up. It can't be. I think Ghost 7 might be. Reed hesitated. I think it might be Lieutenant Sarah Connors from Delta Force. Similar name, similar build. I'm requesting her file now. But Marcus was already walking fast towards Sarah's quarters. His mind was reeling. The shooting, the weapons handling, the professional calm, the eyes. How had he not seen it before? He reached her quarters and knocked hard on the plywood door. Mitchell, open up. No answer. Sarah Mitchell, open this door. That's an order. The door opened slowly. Sarah stood there in her PT uniform, gray shirt, and black shorts, her hair down for the first time since he'd known her. She looked even smaller without her combat fatigues, more vulnerable, but Marcus couldn't shake the image of that thermal signature, that lone shooter on a hillside making impossible shots in impossible conditions. Sir, where were you 3 nights ago during our operation? Something flickered across her face. Medical tent, sir. Dr. Patel can confirm. Don't lie to me. His voice was hard now, commanding. I need the truth. Where were you? Sarah's jaw tightened. For a long moment she just looked at him, and he could see her weighing options, calculating consequences. I was exactly where I was supposed to be, she finally said. If you're hooked on this mystery, you're not alone. This video is approaching 500,000 views in just days. Don't miss what happens next. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because Sarah's secret is about to crack wide open. And when it does, nobody in that base will ever be the same. Stay with us. The next morning brought trouble. Marcus had spent the night digging through whatever records he could access, but Ghost 7's file remained locked behind classification he couldn't breach. Reed had put in urgent requests through intelligence channels, but even she was hitting walls. At 08 or 0 hours, the team gathered in the briefing room for morning operations updates. Sarah was there too, sitting in the back corner, as always taking notes on medical supply requests. Colonel Winters opened the briefing with routine items supply, convoy schedules, patrol rotations, intelligence updates on Taliban movement in the sector. Then he got to the important part. As you're all aware, we have ongoing concerns about the Ghost 7 situation from Operation 13-473. I've escalated this to JSOC Command, but so far I'm getting stonewalled. The file is classified at levels I don't even have names for. He looked directly at Marcus. Team Leader Kane. I understand your frustration, but until we get proper clearance, my hands are tied. Marcus stood. Sir, with respect, 3 of my men nearly died because we had no Overwatch support. We need accountability. We need to know if Ghost 7 failed us or if something else happened. I agree, and I think Ghost 7 might be closer than we realize. The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at Marcus. He pulled up the thermal footage that Reed had obtained. This is from Operation 13-473, 0231 hours. Our team is here. He pointed to the cluster of heat signatures in the village, and this, he moved the pointer to the distant hillside, is a lone shooter, 2.3 kilometers away, 23 confirmed enemy kills in 18 minutes. Murmurs rippled through the room. Now, watch the shooter's heat signature, small build, female proportions, and the shooting style, patient, methodical, surgical. That's not suppressive fire, that's precision elimination. Hayes leaned forward. You think Ghost 7 was out there? I know Ghost 7 was out there. What I don't know is why they went dark afterward. Colonel Winters frowned. Where are you going with this Kane? Marcus took a breath. This was career-ending if he was wrong, but if he was right? Sir, I believe Ghost 7 is currently on this base. The murmurs grew louder. That's a serious accusation, Winters said. Do you have evidence? I have questions that need answers. Marcus turned to face the back of the room, starting with her. Every head turned to look at Sarah. She sat very still, her pen frozen on her notepad, her face unreadable. Mitchell, Winters said slowly. Do you have something you want to tell us? Sarah shook her head. No, sir. Because if you have information relevant to this investigation... I don't, sir. Marcus walked toward her. Then explain the shooting yesterday. Explain how a medic who supposedly flinches at loud noises put 5 rounds into a 4-inch group at 300 yards in gusting wind. Explain how you field stripped and reassembled a Barrett M107 in under 2 minutes. Explain how you made 5 consecutive hits at 800 yards. I got lucky, sir. Nobody gets that lucky. He stopped directly in front of her. And nobody has that kind of muscle memory unless they've been doing it for years. Corporal Davis, who'd been sitting near the back, suddenly spoke up. Sir, permission to add something. Go ahead, Davis. Yesterday I was in the medical storage area and I accidentally knocked over Mitchell's personal locker. He was lying. Marcus could tell by the way his eyes shifted, but he continued. Some items fell out, including dog tags that didn't look like standard issue. Sarah's hands clenched on her notepad. What kind of dog tags? Winters asked. Davis pulled out his phone and showed a photo he'd taken. The image was clear enough to read CPO S. Mitchell, DevGru. The room exploded. DevGru, Hayes shouted. That's SEAL Team 6. Chief Petty Officer, Brooks added. That's an NCO rank. Winters held up his hand for silence. Mitchell, is this true? Sarah sat motionless for 5 full seconds. Then slowly she stood. Sir, I'd like to request legal counsel before answering any more questions. That's not a denial, Marcus said. Why would you need legal counsel unless, because you're accusing me of stolen valor at best and desertion at worst? Her voice was still quiet, but there was steel in it now. And I'm not going to sit here and be railroaded without proper representation. Winters nodded slowly. Fair enough. We'll table this for now. But, Mitchell, you're not to leave the FOB compound without authorization. Understood? Yes, sir. Dismissed. Everyone filed out except Marcus Winters and Reed. They stood in tense silence for a moment. If she's really Chief Petty Officer Mitchell from DevGru, Reed said quietly, then Ghost 7 isn't just some sniper, it's a Tier 1 operator, which means we've been harassing and disrespecting someone who's probably got more combat experience than our entire team combined. Marcus finished. Winters pulled up his secure terminal. I'm making a call to JSOC directly. If Sarah Mitchell is on their roster, we'll know soon enough. He made the call. The conversation was brief and mostly consisted of Winters listening. His expression changed several times, confusion and shock, and finally something that looked like dread. When he hung up, he just sat there for a moment. Sir, Marcus prompted. Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell, Chief Petty Officer, DevGru, designation Ghost 7. Winters' voice was hollow. 89 confirmed kills, specialized in extreme long-range precision strikes. Multiple combat deployments, Silver Star, Bronze Star, with Valor, Purple Heart Navy, Cross pending. The silence in the room was absolute. Navy Cross, Reed whispered. That's one step below the Medal of Honor. Marcus felt like he'd been punched in the gut. We called her weak. We mocked her. There's more. Winters looked at his screen. Operation Ghost Dancer. August 9th through 12th, 2021. 72-hour solo Overwatch mission in Kandahar Province. CPO Mitchell provided sniper support for SEAL Team 5 during a high-risk extraction operation. Enemy forces. He paused. Enemy forces estimated at over 100 combatants. CPO Mitchell eliminated 73 targets over a 3-day period, allowing the team to complete their mission with 0 casualties. 73 kills in 3 days. Hayes' voice came from the doorway. He'd come back to retrieve his forgotten tablet and heard everything. That's not humanly possible. On the 3rd day, Mitchell's position was compromised. She took shrapnel from an enemy mortar strike, lost radio communications, and had to self-extract while wounded. She crawled 8 kilometers through enemy territory before reaching friendly lines. Spent 2 weeks in a field hospital with sepsis before being medevaced to Germany. Winters looked up at them. The operation she supported 3 nights ago. That was you, Operation 13-473. She was your Overwatch, Marcus. She's the one who saved you. But the radio silence, her radio was damaged in a secondary explosion. She took more shrapnel. Winters checked his screen. Left shoulder, right ribs, minor concussion. But she stayed in position and continued engaging targets until your team was clear. Marcus sat down heavily. She was wounded. She was wounded and she kept shooting, and we called her a coward. There's one more thing. Winters turned his screen around. This is why her file was so heavily classified. See this notation: PTSD medical leave. Voluntary transfer to medical services. Psychiatric evaluation pending. Reed leaned in to read. She requested the transfer. Why would someone with her record voluntarily leave Tier 1 operations? Because she killed a child. The words came from the doorway. They all turned to see Chaplain Rodriguez standing there, his face grave. "You knew?" Marcus asked. The chaplain nodded slowly. "She came to me 2 weeks ago, needed to talk, needed absolution, though I'm not sure anything I said helped." He entered the room and closed the door. "It was during her last deployment before coming here," Rodriguez continued. "Village raid, high-value target. She was providing overwatch when she spotted movement in a building, someone with a weapon moving toward her team's position. She made the call, took the shot, perfect hit." He paused, his eyes distant. "When the team cleared the building, they found a 12-year-old boy. Taliban had given him an AK-47 and told him to kill Americans or they'd murder his family. He was crying when he raised that rifle. But through a scope at 900 meters, Sarah couldn't see the tears. She just saw the weapon. The silence was suffocating. That's why she left combat operations," Rodriguez said. "That's why she became a medic. She told me she'd taken enough lives, said she wanted to save them instead. Said maybe if she saved enough people, she could balance the scales for that one child she couldn't save." Marcus felt sick. "And we accused her of cowardice." "She is a coward," Brooks said from the doorway. He'd returned as well, and his voice was hard. "She ran from combat. Doesn't matter what happened, you don't abandon your team." "She didn't abandon anyone," Winters said sharply. "She requested a transfer through proper channels. She was granted medical leave for psychological trauma. There's no shame in that." "There is when you hide who you are," Brooks shot back. "She let us think she was just some weak medic. She let us believe Ghost 7 abandoned us. If she'd just been honest from the start, then what?" Chaplain Rodriguez's voice cut through the room. "Would you have treated her with respect, or would you have made her service into entertainment? Put her on display like a trained animal? Look at the woman who can shoot. She came here to heal herself and others. She deserved the dignity of privacy." Brooks started to respond, but Winters held up his hand. "Enough. What's done is done. The question now is what we do next." We apologize," Marcus said quietly. "We get on our knees and we apologize." "It's not that simple." Reed was still reading the file on Winters' screen. "Look at this pending notation. There's a classified investigation into Ghost 7's actions during Operation 13-473. Someone at JSOC is questioning whether she should have engaged at all given her medical leave status." "That's ridiculous," Hayes said. "She saved our lives, and she did it while officially off combat duty," Reed countered. "Which means she potentially violated direct orders, which means if JSOC decides to make an example of her, she could face disciplinary action, court-martial even." Marcus stood abruptly. "Then we make sure that doesn't happen. We need to find her. We need to—" The lights in the building flickered and went out. Emergency lighting kicked in 3 seconds later, bathing everything in red. Then the base alarm started wailing. "All personnel, this is not a drill." The PA system crackled. "We have reports of hostile forces moving toward the perimeter. All combat personnel to defensive positions. Repeat, all combat personnel to defensive positions." They rushed to the operations center. The watch officer was already on the radio, coordinating with the guard towers. "Sir, we've got approximately 15 to 20 hostiles 500 meters out and closing. They've got RPGs and what looks like a DSHK heavy machine gun." Winters grabbed a handset. "All teams full alert. Hayes, I need you on Overwatch immediately. Get to the northwest tower and give me eyes on those hostiles." Hayes grabbed his rifle and ran, but 5 minutes later, his voice came back over the radio and it was shaking. "Sir, I can't get a clear sight picture. The heat shimmer, the distance, the angle from the tower, I can't guarantee accurate fire. If I shoot and miss, I'll just give away our defensive positions." Winters cursed under his breath. "Then we go with suppressive fire and hope they break off before they get close enough to use those RPGs." "Sir," Marcus's voice was steady despite the chaos, "we have another option." Everyone in the operations center turned to look at him. Ghost 7 made kills at over 2 kilometers in worse conditions than this. If anyone can stop those hostiles before they get in RPG range. "She's not combat cleared," Winters said. "She's the best chance we have." For 3 seconds, Winters wrestled with the decision. Command responsibility, rules, regulations. Then he grabbed the radio. "Someone find Chief Petty Officer Mitchell, now." Sarah was already at the operations center door. She'd heard the alarm and come running, but she was wearing her medic gear aid bag, trauma kit, no weapon. Winters looked at her, and for the first time since she'd arrived at FOB Python, he really saw her. Not a medic, not a woman. A warrior who'd volunteered to put herself between danger and the people she'd sworn to protect. "Chief Mitchell," he said formally, "I'm requesting your assistance." Sarah's eyes met his. "Sir, I'm not cleared for... I'm clearing you. Right now. We have hostiles inbound and my sniper can't make the shots, but I think you can." For just a moment, something like pain crossed her face. She'd left this behind. She'd tried to walk away from the killing. She'd become a medic to save lives, not take them. But outside, 20 Taliban fighters were moving toward a base that held 150 American personnel, friends, colleagues, people she'd treated, talked to, shared meals with, people she'd sworn to protect. "I need a rifle," she said quietly. Hayes' custom M110 was still in the armory from yesterday's range session. Sarah took it without comment, checked the chamber, verified the zero hadn't been disturbed, and slung it over her shoulder. Then she grabbed the Barrett M107 as well. "Two rifles?" Brooks asked. "Different ranges require different tools." Her voice had changed. It was still quiet, but there was authority in it now. Command presence. The M110 for targets under 1,000 meters, the Barrett for anything beyond. She headed for the door, but Marcus caught her arm. "Sarah, I'm sorry, for everything we said. For not seeing..." "Later," she interrupted. "Right now, people need me." She climbed the northwest tower in 30 seconds flat, moving with the sure-footed confidence of someone who'd done this 100 times before. At the top, she set up position, deploying the M110 on its bipod. Hayes was still up there looking through his spotting scope. "I count 18 hostiles, 520 meters and closing. They're using the wadis for cover, moving fast." Sarah settled into position and looked through her scope. Immediately, she started doing calculations. Distance, wind, temperature, barometric pressure, the angle of fire from the elevated position, the movement speed of the targets, the background terrain, and what kind of cover they were using. All of it processed in seconds. "They're spreading out," she said. "Classic assault formation. The one in the center, the bigger man with the radio, that's the leader. Take him first, the rest lose coordination." Hayes looked at her with new respect. "Can you make the shot?" "Yes." No hesitation, no doubt, just certainty. Sarah controlled her breathing. In, hold, out, hold. Her heart rate dropped from 70 beats per minute to 55. Her hands became perfectly still. The rifle was an extension of her body, and her body was a machine built for this singular purpose. She waited for the target to emerge from cover. 3 seconds, 5, 8, there. The Taliban leader stepped into a gap between two wadis, and Sarah's finger pressed the trigger. The M110 barked once. 520 meters downrange, the target dropped like a puppet with cut strings. "Good hit," Hayes confirmed through his spotting scope. "Target down. Holy cow, that was..." But Sarah was already tracking her second target. The hostiles were reacting now, going to ground, returning fire. Bullets cracked overhead, impacting the tower's sandbags. She fired again. Another target down, then again, and again. Each shot was deliberate, patient. No wasted rounds, no panic. Just cold mechanical precision. "Target 9 is moving to the DSHK," Hayes called out. "Heavy machine gun 700 meters. Sarah tracked left, found the target setting up the heavy weapon, and put a round through his chest before he could fire a single shot. The hostiles were breaking now, realizing they were being cut down by someone they couldn't even see. They started to retreat, but Sarah kept firing. Anyone who showed themselves, anyone who tried to provide covering fire, anyone who raised a weapon. In 90 seconds, she fired 19 rounds. 18 targets went down. One round missed when the target dropped into cover at exactly the wrong moment. "Ceasefire," Winters called over the radio. "All hostiles are either down or retreating. Effective defense. Well done." Sarah safed her weapon and stood. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was controlled, but her eyes looked haunted. Hayes was staring at her. 18 shots, 17 kills. In 90 seconds, under fire. I've never seen anything like that. "It's just math," Sarah said quietly. Ballistics, wind, distance. It's all just math. She started to climb down from the tower, but her leg buckled. Hayes caught her arm. "You okay?" That's when he saw the blood. Sarah's left shoulder was bleeding through her uniform. A bullet had clipped her, not a direct hit, but enough to tear flesh and leave a ragged wound. "You're hit. It's minor." She tried to pull away, but Hayes held firm. "You were shot and kept shooting. The mission wasn't complete." Hayes just stared at her. This small, quiet woman who'd let them mock her, who'd endured their contempt, who'd been wounded twice in a week and hadn't said a word about it. We're at the moment of truth. If you've been holding your breath, now's the time to hit that like button and share this video with someone who loves real military stories. What's about to be revealed will shock everyone, including Marcus. Comment below, "Did you see this coming?" Keep watching, the next 60 seconds will blow your mind. By the time Sarah reached the ground, word had spread. A crowd was forming, soldiers who'd watched the defense through binoculars, personnel from the operations center, off-duty troops who'd heard the gunfire and came to see. Dr. Patel was there with her medical bag. "Sarah, sit down. Let me treat that shoulder. I can do it myself. Sit down." Patel's voice brooked no argument. "You've been treating everyone else for weeks. Let someone treat you for once." Sarah sat on an ammo crate, and Patel cut away the bloody uniform sleeve. The wound was clean through and through that had missed bone and major vessels. Painful, but not life-threatening. As Patel cleaned and bandaged it, Colonel Winters approached with Marcus Brooks and the rest of the SEAL team. They stood in a semicircle, and for a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Marcus dropped to one knee. "Chief Petty Officer Mitchell," he said formally, "on behalf of SEAL Team 5, I apologize. We disrespected you, we doubted you. We called you a coward when you're the bravest person on this base. You saved our lives 3 nights ago, and you saved them again today. We were wrong, completely wrong." One by one, the other team members knelt as well. Hayes, Brooks, Davis. All 8 of them on their knees in the dust. "We don't deserve your forgiveness," Marcus continued, and his voice cracked. "But we're asking for it anyway." Sarah looked at them, these men who'd tormented her, and something in her expression softened. "Get up, all of you." "Ma'am," I said, "get up." There was command in her voice now. "You don't kneel to me. I'm not your superior. I'm your teammate. And teammates don't kneel, they stand together." They rose slowly, shame still written on their faces. "You didn't know," Sarah said quietly. "I didn't want you to know. I came here to leave Go 7 behind, to be someone who heals instead of someone who kills." She looked at her bandaged shoulder. "But apparently I can't escape what I am." "What you are," Winters said, "is a hero. Again. Heroes don't have nightmares about the people they've killed, sir. Heroes don't see a child's face every time they close their eyes." Chaplain Rodriguez stepped forward. "Heroes are just people who do what's necessary despite the cost. And the cost for you has been high. But that doesn't make you less of a hero. It makes you human." Sarah's eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. "I'm tired of killing, Chaplain. I'm so tired. I know, but today you saved 150 lives. That matters. Does it balance 18? More dead to save 150. When does the math finally work out? When do I get to stop? Maybe never," Rodriguez said gently. "Maybe that's the burden that warriors like you carry. But you don't carry it alone." Marcus stepped forward. "For what it's worth, Chief, you don't have to be Ghost 7 if you don't want to be. You can be Sarah the medic. You can be whoever you need to be. But know this, if you ever need us, if you ever need anything, we're here. We owe you our lives twice over." Sarah nodded slowly. "Thank you." The crowd began to disperse, but the atmosphere on the base had changed. Word spread fast in a military compound. By nightfall, everyone knew who Sarah Mitchell really was, who Ghost 7 was, and the change was immediate and visible. When she walked to the chow hall for dinner, soldiers stood as she passed. Not at attention that would have been too formal too much, but they stood as a sign of respect. When she got her tray and looked for a place to sit, Marcus and his team immediately made room at their table. "Join us," he asked. "Please." She sat, and for the first time in weeks, she wasn't eating alone. "So," Hayes said carefully, "can I ask you something?" Sarah looked up from her food. "Maybe." "That shot yesterday, 800 yards with the Barrett, you took almost 30 seconds to line it up, but today you were making shots at 700 meters in under 5 seconds. Why the difference? A ghost of a smile touched Sarah's lips. Yesterday there was no threat. I could take my time, make it perfect. Today there was urgency. You do what the situation requires. But you still didn't miss. I missed once. Target number 14 dropped into cover as I fired. Round went high. Hayes laughed in disbelief. 18 shots, 1 miss. And you're criticizing yourself for that. Every round matters. Every shot is a life, yours, mine, theirs. You can't afford to miss when lives are on the line. Brooks spoke up, his voice hesitant. Chief, I owe you a personal apology. The things I said about women in combat were based on statistics, Sarah interrupted. On average, men have greater upper body strength. On average, men have advantages in certain physical tasks. You weren't wrong about the averages, Brooks. You were just wrong about me. Still, apology accepted. Move on. The conversation flowed easier after that. They asked questions carefully at first, then with more confidence as Sarah showed she was willing to talk. How did you end up in DevGru? Jensen asked. Sarah took a sip of water. I was a regular SEAL. Did my time on Team 3, proved myself, and got invited to try out for development group. Spent 2 years in advanced training. Turned out I had a natural aptitude for long-range precision work. Natural aptitude, Hayes muttered. She calls it natural aptitude. And the 89 confirmed kills, Marcus asked quietly. Sarah's expression darkened. 13 deployments, 7 years. Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, places that don't show up on any official record. I was the person they sent when they needed a problem solved from very far away. Do you remember them? All 89. Every single one? Her voice was barely a whisper. Their faces, the distances, the wind speeds, the temperature, every detail of every shot. They're all up here. She tapped her temple. Forever. The table went quiet. That's the real weight, isn't it? Chaplain Rodriguez had joined them, his tray in hand. Not the rifle, not the gear, the memories. Sarah nodded. People think snipers are cold, emotionless, but it's the opposite. We see everything. We watch our targets for hours, sometimes days. We see them eating, laughing, praying. We see their humanity. And then we take it away. But they were enemy combatants, Brooks said. They would have killed Americans. I know. Doesn't make it easier. Doesn't make the faces go away. Marcus leaned forward. Is that why you became a medic, to make the faces go away? I became a medic because after that child... Sarah's voice caught. After that child, I couldn't pull the trigger anymore. Every time I looked through a scope, I saw him, 12 years old, crying. And I killed him anyway because I couldn't see the tears from 900 meters away. She stood abruptly. I need air. Nobody tried to stop her as she left. But 5 minutes later, Marcus found her outside, sitting on a concrete barrier, looking up at the stars. Can I sit? He asked. She nodded. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the distant sounds of the base generators, humming radio chatter, the occasional vehicle passing by. My first kill was in Ramadi, Marcus finally said. 2007, 18 years old. He couldn't have been more than 20. I shot him 3 times center mass. He died looking at me. Sarah glanced at him. I threw up afterward, Marcus continued. Just emptied my stomach right there in the street. My team leader told me it gets easier. He lied. It doesn't get easier. You just get better at living with it. Yeah? But here's what I know now that I didn't know then, Marcus said. The fact that it doesn't get easier, that's what makes us human. The day it stops bothering you is the day you've become something else, something broken. Maybe I am broken. You're not. Broken people don't volunteer to become medics. Broken people don't put themselves between danger and their teammates. Broken people don't keep fighting when they've been shot. You're not broken, Sarah. You're just carrying weight that most people can't imagine. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, do you know what the Navy Cross citation says? The one that's pending? No. For extraordinary heroism in combat operations against enemy forces. That's how they describe it. Heroism. But you know what it really was? It was 3 days of killing. 73 people dead because I was good at math and breathing control. That's not heroism. That's just efficient murder. Those 73 people were trying to kill a 12-man SEAL team, Marcus said firmly. If you hadn't been there, my brothers would be dead. That's not murder, that's protection. That's sacrifice. Sacrifice, Sarah laughed bitterly. You want to know what sacrifice is? Sacrifice is looking through a scope and seeing a child with a rifle and knowing that if you don't shoot, he'll kill your teammates. So, you take the shot. You murder a child to save adults. And then you live with that choice every single day for the rest of your life. Marcus didn't have an answer for that. There wasn't one. I'm sorry, he finally said, for all of it. Not just for how we treated you here, but for what this war has done to you. To all of us. Sarah wiped her eyes. You didn't make me pull that trigger. I did. That's on me. No, that's on the Taliban who gave a child a rifle. That's on a war that's been going on so long. We're fighting people who weren't born when it started. But it's not on you. You were doing your job, protecting your team. You can't blame yourself for that. Watch me. They sat in silence again, and then Sarah spoke so quietly, Marcus almost missed it. Thank you. For what? For not treating me like I'm fragile, for not trying to tell me it'll all be okay, for just sitting here. Anytime, Chief. She smiled slightly. You can call me Sarah. Only if you stop calling us sir. We're teammates now. Equals. Deal. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. A Black Hawk helicopter landed at 09:00 hours and outstepped Major General Thomas Patterson, JSOC Deputy Commander. With him was a full bird colonel and 2 staff officers. Word spread instantly. General officers didn't just show up at forward operating bases without a very good reason. Colonel Winters met them at the landing pad, saluting crisply. Sir, we weren't expecting... This isn't a scheduled visit, Colonel, Patterson said. His voice was gravel and authority. Where is Chief Petty Officer Mitchell? Medical tent, sir. She's... Get her, now, and assemble her team. I want everyone who was present for Operation 13-473 and yesterday's defensive action. 10 minutes later, they were all gathered in the briefing room. Sarah stood at attention, still wearing her medical fatigues, her wounded shoulder bandaged beneath her uniform. Patterson looked at her for a long moment. Then he did something that made every person in that room hold their breath. He saluted her. Chief Petty Officer Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell, he said formally. On behalf of the Joint Special Operations Command, the United States Navy, and a grateful nation, I'm here to present you with the Navy Cross for your actions during Operation Ghost Dancer. He produced a medal case and opened it. The Navy Cross Bronze distinguished second only to the Medal of Honor for Valor. Your citation reads as follows. The colonel beside him began. For extraordinary heroism while serving as sniper support for SEAL Team 5 during Operation Ghost Dancer, August 9th through 12th, 2021. Chief Petty Officer Mitchell maintained a solo overwatch position for 72 continuous hours, eliminating 73 enemy combatants and enabling the successful extraction of a 12-man special operations team. Despite sustaining serious wounds from enemy mortar fire, CPO Mitchell continued to engage enemy forces until friendly personnel were clear of danger. Her actions prevented the loss of American lives and directly contributed to mission success. Her courage, tactical proficiency, and unwavering commitment to her teammates reflect great credit upon herself and are in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. Patterson pinned the medal to her uniform himself. Then he stepped back and saluted again. Everyone in the room followed suit, a room full of officers and enlisted personnel, all saluting a chief petty officer. Sarah's eyes were wet, but she held her salute steady until Patterson dropped his. There's more, Patterson said. Chief Mitchell, your actions 3 days ago and yesterday have been documented and reviewed. Despite being on medical leave, you engaged enemy forces and saved American lives. Twice. Under normal circumstances, this could be problematic. You weren't cleared for combat operations. Sarah tensed. However, Patterson continued, given the exigent circumstances and the lives saved, JSOC Command has ruled that your actions were justified. Additionally, we're offering you a choice. He nodded to the colonel, who produced a folder. Option 1, return to full active duty with DevGru. Your team is asking for you. They need a lead sniper, and frankly, you're the best we have. Sarah's breath caught. Option 2, remain on medical leave. Continue your work as a medic. No judgment, no consequences. You've earned the right to choose your own path. Option 3. Patterson said quietly, is something new. We're establishing a specialized training program, teaching the next generation of Tier 1 snipers. We need someone with your expertise to lead it. You'd still be serving, still be making a difference, but from a teaching position. No combat deployments unless you volunteer for them. He looked at her directly. You've given enough, Chief. More than enough. The choice is yours. Sarah looked around the room, at Marcus and his team standing at attention with respect on their faces, at Colonel Winters, who doubted her and then believed her, at Dr. Patel and Chaplain Rodriguez, who'd seen her struggle and supported her anyway, at Hayes, who was looking at her like she'd hung the moon. "Can I have time to decide, sir?" she asked. "Take all the time you need, but—" Patterson pulled out an encrypted phone. "We do have one situation that I need to brief you on. It's time-sensitive and highly classified." They cleared the room, except for Patterson, the Colonel Winters, Marcus, and Sarah. Patterson activated a secure display. 48 hours ago, an American civilian was taken hostage in Kabul, high-value target. The kidnappers are demanding prisoner exchanges we can't make. We have a location, but it's in a densely populated area. Surgical precision is required. He pulled up satellite imagery. The hostage is being held in a third-floor apartment. 2 guards visible, likely more inside. Civilian foot traffic is constant. Any rescue attempt that goes loud will result in civilian casualties and possible execution of the hostage. Marcus studied the imagery. This is a sniper operation. Yes, we need someone who can make a precision shot through a third-floor window, eliminate the visible guards without alerting the others, and give our ground team a 30-second window to breach and extract the hostage. He turned to Sarah. "You're the only person we trust to make this shot. The window is 42 centimeters wide. The range is 820 meters. Wind conditions are unpredictable due to urban canyon effects. The shot has to be perfect. If you miss, the hostage dies." Sarah studied the imagery, her mind already calculating angles, wind deflection, bullet drop. "Who's the hostage?" she asked. Patterson hesitated. Then he pulled up a photo. Senator Robert Mitchell, age 62, distinguished public servant, former Army officer, 3-term senator, Sarah's father. The room went dead silent. "You're his daughter," Patterson said quietly. "We didn't make the connection until yesterday. Your file has your mother's maiden name, that's why it didn't flag. But when we started digging—" He paused. "Sarah, I wouldn't ask this if we had any other option, but you're the best, and time is running out." Sarah stared at the photo of her father. They hadn't spoken in 5 years, not since she'd joined the Navy against his wishes. He'd wanted her to go to law school to follow him into politics. She'd wanted to serve. They'd parted on bad terms. Angry words, doors slammed. A relationship fractured that neither of them had bothered to repair. And now he was going to die unless she picked up a rifle again. Unless she became Ghost 7 one more time. She looked at her bandaged shoulder, at the Navy cross on her chest, at the faces around her warriors who doubted her and then believed her, who'd seen her at her weakest and at her strongest. Colonel Winters pulled up his secure terminal and began typing. "I'm making a call to JSOC directly. If Sarah Mitchell is on their roster, we'll know soon enough." Sarah closed her eyes. She could see them all 89 faces. Every person she'd killed, every shot she'd taken. The child with the rifle crying as he died. Could she make it 90-91? Could she pull that trigger one more time? For her father? For a man who'd disowned her, who'd called her a disappointment, who'd said she was wasting her life in the military. But he was still her father. And she'd taken an oath. To protect Americans. Even the ones who didn't believe in her. She opened her eyes. "Send the coordinates," she said quietly. Patterson nodded. "You leave in 4 hours. We'll have full tactical support, your choice of equipment. I want Gunnery Sergeant Morrison as my spotter, and I want that Barrett M107 I used yesterday, Hayes's rifle. It's already zeroed to my preferences." "Done. Anything else?" Sarah looked at Marcus. "I want your team on the ground element, the breach team. If I make the shot, you're the ones I trust to get my father out alive." Marcus didn't hesitate. "We're in. If this story gave you chills, wait until you see what we have coming. Next week, a Marine Corps drill instructor who thought he'd seen it all until a weak recruit did something that made a 4-star general stop mid-inspection. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And share this video. Sarah's story deserves to be heard. 3 hours and 47 minutes later, Sarah was in a Black Hawk heading toward Kabul. She'd changed into full tactical gear plate, carrier helmet, night vision communications. The Barrett M107 was secured beside her, along with Hayes's M110 as a backup. Gunnery Sergeant Tex Morrison sat across from her, his weathered face calm and professional. "Been a while since we worked together, Ghost." 4 years. "You ready for this?" Sarah checked her equipment for the third time. Magazine, chamber, scope. Everything perfect. Everything ready. "No," she admitted, "but I'm doing it anyway." "That's all anyone can ask." But the helicopter flew low and fast, using terrain masking to avoid detection. Behind them, 2 more Black Hawks carried Marcus's SEAL team and their support element. They landed 3 kilometers from the target building in a pre-secured compound that CIA had arranged. From there, Sarah and Tex would move to their sniper position, while Marcus's team positioned for the breach. The sniper position was the roof of a 5-story building 820 meters from the target. It gave them a perfect sightline to the 3rd-floor apartment window where Senator Mitchell was being held. Sarah and Tex made the climb in full darkness using night vision to navigate the stairs. At the top, they set up their hide, a concealed position behind the roof's parapet, with the Barrett's muzzle barely extending past the concrete. Through her scope, Sarah could see the target apartment. 2 guards visible, both armed with AK-47s. They were smoking cigarettes, talking casually, completely unaware that they were being watched. "Range confirmed," Tex said, checking his laser rangefinder. 823 meters, wind 3 to 4 miles per hour variable, temperature 21 degrees Celsius, barometric pressure 1012 millibars. Sarah adjusted her scope based on the data. At this range, every variable mattered. The bullet would take approximately 1.1 seconds to reach the target. In that time, it would drop nearly 8 feet and drift 3 inches to the right due to wind and Coriolis effect. She'd made harder shots before, but never with her father's life hanging in the balance. "Ground team in position." Marcus's voice crackled through her earpiece. "Standing by for your signal." "Copy," Sarah replied. "Stand by." She settled into her shooting position. The familiar rhythm took over: breathing control, heart rate reduction, muscle relaxation. Her body became a stable platform. The rifle became an extension of her will. Through her scope, she watched the guards, studied their patterns. One of them checked his watch every 90 seconds. The other kept adjusting his rifle sling. They were bored, complacent. That would be their last mistake. "I need them both in the window simultaneously," she told Tex. "I'll take the one on the left, first transition to the right, 1.5 seconds maximum between shots." "That's a fast transition." "I know." She waited, watching, patient. The guard on the left laughed at something his companion said, stepped toward the window. The other guard joined him, both silhouetted against the interior lights. "Targets in position," Tex confirmed. "Wind steady at 3 miles per hour. You have green light." Sarah's finger took up the trigger, slack. First stage, second stage. The rifle would fire with another 2 pounds of pressure. She thought about her father, about the last time she'd seen him 5 years ago, his angry face telling her she was making a mistake, her own angry response that she was serving her country, not his ambitions. All those wasted years, all that pride and stubbornness on both sides. Maybe they'd never repair their relationship. Maybe he'd never understand why she'd chosen this path, but she'd make sure he lived long enough to have the chance. Sarah pressed the trigger. The Barrett roared. The .50 caliber round crossed 823 meters in 1.1 seconds and struck the left guard precisely between his 3rd and 4th ribs, devastating his heart and lungs. He was dead before his brain could process the impact. Sarah worked the bolt, ejected the spent casing chambered. A new round acquired the second target, who was just beginning to react to his companion's collapse, and fired again. 1.4 seconds. Well, within her target time. The second guard dropped. 2 down, she reported. Execute, execute, execute. Marcus's team was already moving. They hit the apartment door with a battering ram 6 seconds after the second shot. Flash bangs, controlled chaos, shouted commands. Sarah kept her scope on the window, ready to take any additional threats that appeared. "Hostage secured," Marcus's voice came through. "Moving to extract point." "Copy. Good work." It was over. The mission was complete. Her father was safe. Sarah safed the Barrett and let out a breath she felt like she'd been holding for days. "90," she said quietly. "What?" Tex asked. "90 confirmed kills now." "These weren't kills, Ghost. These were rescues. There's a difference." "Is there?" Tex looked at her, his expression gentle but firm. "Yeah, there is. Those men would have executed your father on camera tomorrow morning. They would have used his death to spread terror and fear. You stopped that. You saved a life. That's the difference." Sarah didn't respond. She just started breaking down the Barrett, her hands moving through the familiar sequence. 20 minutes later, they were on the Black Hawk heading back to the extraction point. Marcus and his team were in the other helicopter with Senator Mitchell, shaken dehydrated, but alive and unharmed. When they landed at the secure compound, Sarah finally saw her father, face to face. He looked older than she remembered, thinner. His hair had gone completely gray. But his eyes, sharp and intelligent, were the same. He stared at her for a long moment, taking in the tactical gear, the rifle, the warrior his daughter had become. "Sarah," he said, and his voice cracked. "They told me. They said Ghost 7 was coming. I didn't know that was you." "Hi, Dad." They stood 3 feet apart, years of anger and resentment between them, like a wall neither knew how to climb. Then Senator Mitchell closed the distance and pulled her into a fierce hug. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for everything I said, for not understanding, for not seeing what you were trying to do. You saved my life, Sarah. You're a hero." Sarah's arms came up slowly, hesitantly, and returned the embrace. "I'm not a hero, Dad. I'm just doing what I was trained to do." "No." He pulled back, hands on her shoulders, looking directly into her eyes. "You're doing what you were called to do, and I was wrong to try to stop you. I was selfish. I wanted you to follow my path instead of finding your own. Can you forgive me?" Sarah's vision blurred with tears. "Can you forgive me for all the things I said, for walking away?" "There's nothing to forgive. You were right. You were always right. I just couldn't see it." They stood there, father and daughter, healing a wound that had festered for 5 years. Marcus approached carefully. "Sir, we need to move. The helos are waiting to take you to the embassy." Senator Mitchell nodded, but didn't take his eyes off Sarah. "Will I see you again?" "I don't know. Maybe. I'd like that. I have a lot of lost time to make up for." He squeezed her shoulders. "I'm proud of you, Sarah. So incredibly proud." Those words she'd waited years to hear broke something open inside her. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. As they loaded her father onto the helicopter, Marcus came to stand beside her. "You okay?" "Yeah, I think so." That was the cleanest double tap I've ever seen. 1.4 seconds, under combat stress, with your father's life on the line. That's beyond professional, Sarah. That's legendary. She watched the helicopter lift off, carrying her father to safety. "It's just what needed to be done. You keep saying that, but most people couldn't do what you do. That's what makes you special." Sarah turned to look at him. "Marcus, I need to tell you something." "Okay." "When I look through that scope, I don't see enemies. I see people, fathers, sons, brothers. Every person I've killed had a family who loved them, had dreams, had a life I ended, and I carry every single one of them with me. That child, he's always there, every time I close my eyes. I know. Do you? Because sometimes I wonder if the cost is too high, if maybe I've given too much, lost too much of myself." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "My grandmother used to tell me a story about a man who carried stones in his pockets. Every time he did something, he regretted he'd put a stone in his pocket. Eventually, the weight got so heavy he could barely walk. So he went to a wise woman and asked her how to get rid of the stones. What did she tell him? She said, 'You can't get rid of them. They're yours now. You earned them, but you don't have to carry them alone.' Then she gave him a bag to share the weight, told him to find people who understood, who'd help carry the burden." Sarah smiled slightly. "That's a nice story. It's true. You're carrying stones, Sarah. 90 of them now. But you don't have to carry them alone. We're here. Your team, your friends. We'll help carry the weight. I'm not sure I deserve that. None of us deserve it, but we get it anyway. That's what makes us family." They flew back to Fob Python as the sun rose over the Afghan mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Sarah sat in the helicopter, the Barrett across her lap, watching the landscape pass below. Somewhere down there, 2 more families were grieving. 2 more mothers were getting the worst news of their lives. Because of her. Because she'd pulled the trigger. But somewhere else, a senator was alive. His family wouldn't have to bury him. His grandchildren would still have their grandfather. The country would still have his service. The math worked. The equation balanced. But it never felt like it did. Back at the fob, word had spread again. When Sarah climbed out of the helicopter, there was a crowd waiting. Not to gawk or stare, but to welcome her home. Hayes was first in line. Chief heard you made an 823-meter double tap in under 2 seconds. That's going in the record books. 1.4 seconds, Sarah corrected automatically, then smiled. And it's not a record. Tex did a 1.2 in Fallujah back in 2004. Still counted, Tex said, walking up behind her. And for the record, mine was with a Barrett in daylight. You did it with night vision in an urban environment with hostage rescue protocols. Your shot was harder. Dr. Patel pushed through the crowd with her medical bag. Shoulder, now. I need to check that wound. It's fine. That wasn't a request, Chief. Sarah let herself be led to the medical tent, where Patel carefully removed the bandage and inspected the healing wound. No signs of infection. You're healing well, but you need to stop getting shot. I'll try. I'm serious, Sarah. Your body can only take so much trauma. I know. Colonel Winters entered the tent with a tablet in hand. Chief Mitchell, I have your orders from JSOC. They're giving you 72 hours to make your decision. Option 1, 2, or 3. But they need an answer by Friday at 1800 hours. Sarah nodded slowly. Can I ask you something, sir? Of course. What would you do if you were me? Winters considered the question carefully. Honestly, I don't know. All 3 options have merit. DevGru needs you. You're the best at what you do. Medical Corps needs you. You're a gifted healer. And training the next generation. That's a legacy that will outlive all of us. But the question isn't what the military needs. It's what you need. What does Sarah Mitchell need to be whole, to be happy, to be at peace? Sarah looked at her hands. Hands that had killed 90 people. Hands that had healed hundreds more. I don't know if I'll ever be at peace, sir. Maybe not, but you can be useful. You can be purposeful. You can make a difference. That's all any of us can hope for. That evening, Sarah found herself at the small memorial wall near the operations center. It held photos and names of service members who'd been killed in action, a reminder of the cost of war. Chaplain Rodriguez was there, as he often was, standing quietly in front of the wall. Paying respects, Sarah asked. Always. Each of these people had a story, dreams, people who loved them. It feels wrong not to remember them. Do you ever wonder if it's worth it, all this death and sacrifice? Rodriguez turned to look at her. Every single day. But then I think about what would happen if good people stopped standing between evil and the innocent. I think about the dictators and terrorists and warlords who would run unchecked. And I realize that as terrible as war is, there are things even more terrible. And sometimes the only thing standing between civilization and chaos is people like you. People like me who are really good at killing. People like you who are really good at protecting. There's a difference. Sarah leaned against the wall, exhausted. I don't know what to do, Chaplain. JSOC wants an answer, and I don't have one. What does your heart tell you? My heart tells me to run away and never look at another rifle as long as I live. And your head? My head tells me that if I don't do this, someone else will have to. Someone who might not be as good, who might make mistakes, who might get people killed because they weren't trained well enough. Sounds like you already know your answer. Sarah closed her eyes. Option 3. Training, teaching, passing on what I know. So the next generation doesn't have to learn it through trial and error, through deaths that could have been prevented. That's a noble choice. Is it, or am I just looking for a compromise, a way to stay connected to combat without having to pull the trigger myself? Does it matter? If the end result is better trained warriors who save more lives, does your motivation really matter? Sarah opened her eyes. You're very wise, Chaplain. I'm very old. There's a difference. He smiled. But seriously, Sarah, whatever you choose, make sure it's what you can live with, not what makes everyone else happy, not what checks the most boxes. What can you live with? I can live with teaching, I think. Then that's your answer. The next morning, Sarah submitted her decision to Colonel Winters. Option 3, lead instructor for the JSOC Advanced Sniper Training Program. No combat deployments, unless she volunteered. Full authority to design curriculum and select students. Winters reviewed her paperwork and nodded. "This is good, Chief. You're going to change a lot of lives. Save a lot of lives." "I hope so, sir. One more thing." He pulled out another document. "Senator Mitchell contacted JSOC this morning. He wanted to make sure you knew he's introducing legislation to expand mental health services for special operations personnel, specifically for snipers and other specialists who deal with what he called the unique burden of precision warfare. He said you inspired it." Sarah felt her throat tighten. "He did that, said it was the least he could do for the woman who saved his life. Also said he'd like to visit you once you're stateside, if you're willing." "I am very willing." The next 48 hours passed in a blur of paperwork, packing, and goodbyes. Marcus and his team threw her an informal farewell party in the chow hall. Nothing fancy, just pizza and soda and stories. "Remember when you made that 800-yard shot and Hayes nearly had a heart attack?" Marcus laughed. Hayes grinned. "I did not nearly have a heart attack. I was just surprised, deeply, profoundly surprised." "You dropped your coffee cup," Brooks added. "It shattered everywhere. Because I was shocked, a medic who'd supposedly never fired a rifle just outshot me with my own weapon." "To be fair," Sarah said quietly, "I had fired a rifle before." They all laughed. Jensen raised his soda can. "A toast to Chief Sarah Mitchell, Ghost 7, the warrior who saved our lives and then saved them again. The woman who taught us that strength comes in all forms and heroes don't always announce themselves. We will never forget you." Everyone raised their drinks. "To Ghost 7." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you, all of you, for accepting me, for forgiving me for hiding who I was, for giving me a second chance." "You gave us a second chance at life," Marcus said seriously. "Twice. We're the ones who should be thanking you. You already did, by seeing past the medic to the person underneath, by treating me like family." As the party wound down and people drifted away, Hayes approached Sarah with something wrapped in cloth. "Chief, I want you to have this." He unwrapped it, his custom M110 rifle, the one she'd used to make those perfect shots, the one that had helped save her father. "Hayes, I can't." "Yes, you can. This rifle has been in my family for 3 generations. My grandfather carried it in Vietnam, my father in Desert Storm. I've carried it for 7 years. And now I want you to have it. Train the next generation with it. Make sure they understand that it's not just a tool, it's a responsibility." Sarah took the rifle reverently. "I'll take care of it, I promise." "I know you will." On her last morning at FOB Python, Sarah made one final visit to the memorial wall. She stood in front of it, looking at the faces of the fallen, and whispered a prayer for them all. Then she added one more prayer. For the 90 people she'd killed, for the child she couldn't save, for all the souls caught in the machinery of war. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for all of it. I hope someday you can forgive me." The Black Hawk lifted off at 1000 hours. Sarah watched FOB Python shrink below her, the place where she'd been broken down and built back up, where she'd learned that hiding from your past doesn't make it go away, it just makes you smaller. Marcus, Hayes, Brooks, Jensen, and the rest of the team stood on the helipad saluting as she left. She returned the salute until they were out of sight. As Sarah considered her future, she thought about the post-military transition programs available to special operations, Veterans Comprehensive Career Counseling Services, psychological support for combat-related trauma, and legal assistance for navigating VA benefits and medical discharge processes. These specialized veteran services include PTSD treatment programs, vocational retraining for civilian careers, and legal advocates who understand the complexities of military records, security clearances, and the unique challenges special operations personnel face when reintegrating into civilian life, professional support networks that help elite warriors find their next mission after the uniform comes off. 3 weeks later, Sarah stood in front of her first class at the Naval Special Warfare Training Center in Coronado, California. 20 students, all experienced combat veterans, all qualified snipers, all there to learn from the best. "My name is Chief Petty Officer Sarah Mitchell," she began. "Some of you may know me as Ghost 7. I have 90 confirmed kills across 13 deployments. I've made shots at ranges you probably think are impossible. I've operated alone behind enemy lines. I've done things I'm proud of, and things that keep me awake at night. She paused, looking at each student in turn. But here's what I want you to understand on day one. Being a sniper isn't about the rifle. It's not about the distance or the wind or the math. It's about the weight. Every shot you take, every life you end, you carry it forever. And if you're lucky, if you're strong, if you're surrounded by people who understand, you learn to carry it without letting it destroy you. She picked up Hayes's M110 from the table beside her. This rifle belonged to my friend. He gave it to me because he understood something important. We don't own these weapons, we're just their temporary caretakers. And our job is to pass them on to the next generation with the wisdom we've earned through blood and sacrifice. One student raised his hand. Chief, is it true you made a sub-2-second double tap at over 800 meters? 1.4 seconds. And yes, but that shot cost me something. Every shot does. The question you need to ask yourself is, are you willing to pay that price? Because I can teach you the mechanics. I can teach you the math and the breathing and the trigger control, but I can't teach you how to live with the consequences. That's something you'll have to figure out on your own. She set the rifle down and looked at them all. Welcome to advanced sniper training. By the time we're done, you'll be the best shots in the world. But more importantly, you'll understand the responsibility that comes with that skill. You'll understand that every round you fire changes you, and you'll have the tools to carry that change without letting it break you. Now, she continued, let's talk about the fundamentals, because before you can make the hard shots, you need to master the easy ones. And the easy ones are never as easy as they look. The class laughed, and Sarah felt something shift inside her. This was right. This was where she was meant to be. Not on a hilltop looking through a scope at targets 2 kilometers away. Not in a medical tent patching up wounds and pretending she was someone else. But here, teaching, mentoring, passing on the lessons she'd learned at such terrible cost. Over the next months, Sarah built a reputation as a demanding but fair instructor. She pushed her students hard, but she also supported them. She taught them not just to shoot, but to think, to assess, to make ethical decisions under impossible pressure. And slowly, carefully, she began to heal. The nightmares didn't stop. The faces didn't go away. The child with the rifle still appeared every time she closed her eyes. But she learned to carry them better, to share the weight with people who understood, to find purpose in making sure the next generation didn't have to learn the same lessons she had. 6 months into her new position, she received a visitor. Senator Robert Mitchell walked into her office unannounced, accompanied by a staffer and a security detail. "Dad," Sarah stood quickly. "What are you doing here? Can't a father visit his daughter at work?" He smiled, but his eyes were serious. "I wanted to see what you've built here." She gave him a tour of the facility, the ranges, the classrooms, the simulation rooms. He watched her teach a class on wind reading and was visibly impressed by her command presence and the respect her students showed her. Afterward, they sat in her office with coffee. "You've found your calling," he said simply. "I can see it in your face. You're at peace here in a way you never were before." "I wouldn't say at peace," Sarah demurred, "but purposeful, useful, that's enough." "It's more than enough." He reached across the desk and took her hand. "Sarah, I've spent the last 6 months trying to make amends for the years I was a terrible father. The legislation I mentioned, it passed. Full funding for mental health services, for special operations personnel. But more than that, I've been talking to people, learning about what you went through, what all of you go through. Dad, you don't have to. Yes, I do, because I was wrong about everything. I thought serving in politics was the highest form of service. I thought what I did in Congress mattered more than what you did in the field. But I was an idiot. You're out there saving lives, training warriors who will save more lives. That's real service. That's real sacrifice. And I'm so damn proud of you, I can barely stand it." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. That means everything to me. I have something for you." He pulled a small box from his pocket. "This was your grandfather's. He was a Marine sniper in Korea, made shots that people still talk about. He would have been so proud of you, so I want you to have his challenge coin." He opened the box. Inside was a worn brass coin with a Marine Corps emblem on one side and coordinates on the other. "Those coordinates," her father explained, "are where he made his longest confirmed kill, 1,200 meters, in 1951, with a rifle that barely qualified as precision equipment. He carried this coin for 60 years. When he died, he left it to me with instructions: give this to the warrior in the family, the one who understands what it costs. Sarah took the coin with trembling hands. I'll treasure it, always. I know you will. He stood and pulled her into another hug. I love you, Sarah. I'm sorry it took me so long to say it. I love you too, Dad. After he left, Sarah sat alone in her office, turning the challenge coin over and over in her hands. 3 generations of snipers, 3 generations of warriors who'd carried the weight of their choices. She wasn't alone. She never had been. That evening, as the California sun set over the Pacific Ocean, Sarah stood on the beach near the training center. She held the challenge coin in one hand and Hayes's coin in the other, 2 pieces of metal representing honor, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bonds between warriors. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus' team reunion next month. You in? She smiled and typed back, absolutely. Wouldn't miss it. Another message appeared, this one from an encrypted number. Ghost 7. This is Viper, CIA Special Activities. We have a situation, high-value target, American hostages, Kabul, 72 hours. We need you. Sarah stared at the message for a long time. She thought about option 3, about teaching, about building a life that didn't revolve around looking through scopes at human targets. But she also thought about those American hostages, about families waiting for their loved ones to come home, about warriors who might not make it back because the shot was too hard, the angle too difficult, the conditions too challenging. She typed a response, send mission, brief, no promises. The brief arrived 60 seconds later. She opened it and began reading. Target location, Kabul, Afghanistan. Hostages 3 American aid workers, guards, estimated 8 to 10. Complication, hostages are being moved in 48 hours to an unknown location. Window of opportunity, 72 hours maximum, required action. Long-range precision strike to eliminate guards and enable ground team extraction. Recommended operator, Ghost 7. No viable alternatives. Sarah closed her phone and looked out at the ocean. The sun had disappeared below the horizon, leaving the sky painted in deep purples and blues. She thought about the 90 people she'd killed, the child she couldn't save, the nights she couldn't sleep, the faces that never went away. Then she thought about her father alive because she'd pulled the trigger, about Marcus and his team alive because she'd been on that hillside, about the thousands of people who were alive because someone like her had stood between them and evil. The math didn't balance. It never would. But maybe that was okay. Maybe carrying the weight was the price for being able to make a difference. And maybe that was enough. She picked up her phone and sent a single word, confirmed. Immediately her phone rang. Encrypted call. She answered. Ghost 7, a distorted voice said. This is Viper. We have a situation that requires your unique skill set. 3 American civilians, medical aid workers taken hostage by a splinter group operating in Kabul. Intel suggests they'll be executed on camera in 72 hours unless we extract them first. What's the tactical situation? Hostile territory, urban environment, multiple civilians in the area. The hostages are being held in a compound with high walls and limited access points. We need surgical precision. Any operation that goes loud will result in civilian casualties and likely execution of the hostages before we can breach. What's my part? You'll provide overwatch from an elevated position approximately 1,000 meters from the target compound. Your job is to eliminate external guards and provide cover for the extraction team during exfil. We're estimating 8 to 10 hostiles, half inside the compound, half patrolling the perimeter. Who's the ground team? Your choice. We can provide Tier 1 assets, or you can request specific personnel. Sarah didn't hesitate. I want SEAL Team 5, Marcus Kane's team. They know how I operate. Done. They're being notified now. Wheels up in 18 hours. You'll link up with them at Bagram, run through mission planning, and execute at 2200 hours local time. Understood. Ghost 7. One more thing. This is voluntary. You're not active combat duty. You can say no. Sarah looked at the challenge coins in her hand, her grandfather's, her friends', both worn smooth by warriors who'd carried them through hell. I'm in, she said. Those aid workers came to Afghanistan to help people. They deserve someone who'll help them. I'll be there. Thank you, Chief. Transport will pick you up at 0600 tomorrow. The call ended. Sarah stood on that beach for a long time, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. Somewhere in Afghanistan, 3 innocent people were waiting for rescue, waiting for hope. She would be their hope. She would be Ghost 7 one more time. And when it was over, when the hostages were safe and the mission was complete, she would come back here and continue teaching, continue healing, continue carrying the weight of her choices with the help of people who understood. Because that's what warriors did. They stood between evil and the innocent. They paid the cost that others couldn't afford. They carried the weight that would crush ordinary people. And they kept moving forward day after day, mission after mission, knowing that every life saved mattered. Every person protected was worth the nightmares. Every shot that prevented an execution or a tragedy was a small victory against the darkness. Sarah walked back toward her quarters, her mind already shifting into mission mode. Gear to pack, weapons to prep, students to brief that she'd be gone for a week. She passed a group of her students on the way. They snapped to attention and saluted. "As you were," she said, "keep practicing those fundamentals. I want to see improvement when I get back." "Where are you going, Chief?" one of them asked. Sarah paused at the door to her quarters. She looked back at them young warriors who were learning from her mistakes, who would carry on the tradition of precision and honor. "Just a short trip," she said. "Someone needs help, and that's what we do." She entered her quarters and began to pack. The Barrett M107, Hayes's M110, her spotting scope, her rangefinder, her worn challenge coins, and her memories and her determination. Ghost 7 was going back to war. But this time, she wasn't running from herself. She was running toward something greater, toward purpose, toward service, toward the calling that had defined her entire adult life. She was going to save those 3 aid workers. And then she was going to come home. Because home wasn't a place anymore. Home was the mission. Home was the rifle. Home was the weight she carried and the people who helped her carry it. Home was being Ghost 7. And Ghost 7 had work to do.